Hi, my name is Nancy. I'm one of the public services staff at the South Holland Public Library, and this is a sip and read. Here's my sips. This is a mug that I bought at the Bristol Renaissance Fair several years ago. Here are my reads. My theme is history, and I chose this because I had discovered several years ago that every time I studied a time period on my own in history, it was because I had read a novel that was set during that time period. So that's what we're going to discuss. The first one, I read this first when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I don't have the dust jacket anymore, but this is a novel called Catherine. It was written by Anya Seton in 1954, and it is about Catherine Swynford, who was the mistress of John of Gaunt, who was the son of Edward III in England. A lot of history, but basically it's set in England in the late 1300s. And Catherine, by the way, was the sister-in-law of Geoffrey Chaucer, so that gives you an idea of some of the time period. But it is a lush book. It is just chock full of historical information and detail. Even though Anya Seton was not an historian, she was a novelist. She brings that sensibility to the story, and it is a marvelous story. It sucked me in, and it has never let me go. Another book in the time period is this. This is by Candace Robb. This is a series about a man named Owen Archer. Same time period, only in York, in England. This is book 9 of the series. The library does have several of the books. They're also available as ebooks, by the way. But when you read something like this, if you don't know anything about what was going on at the time, the historical background, there are things that can help you. And for instance, this book by Barbara Tuchman, Distant Mirror, about the 14th century, came out in 1978. It was a bestseller, actually. It was very popular, very well received. But this is a big book. You can also go for something smaller like this one. This is Daily Life in the Middle Ages. Much less intimidating, but still will give you a flavor of what was going on for this. So let's jump ahead a little bit. Alexandre Dumas, Three Musketeers. Three Musketeers. Everybody knows the story of the Three Musketeers plus one, D'Artagnan. This actually is 20 years after. It's the sequel to the Three Musketeers. Coincidentally, the father of Alexandre Dumas, that was the subject of a book a few years ago. It was called The Black Count, and he was actually part black. He was the highest ranking black brigadier of person of color in the French army for many, many years. It's a fascinating story. You know, this is set during the French Revolution. Lots of sword play, lots of feathers in the hats, lots of things going on. Noble behavior, bad behavior by everybody. But if the time period again interests you, try something like this. French Revolution by Ian Davidson. Again, not a very big book, not very intimidating, but it will give you a flavor of what the setting was for these types of books. Give you a little background on what the real people were like, what was really going on politically. Let's go back to the United States. One of my original favorite books ever, Johnny Tremain. This was written by Esther Forbes, 1943. It was a Newbery Medal winner, made into a Disney movie in 1957, which I also have loved. And if you watch it, I guarantee you will be singing the Sons of Liberty song for days at the end. It's set in Boston, beginning of the Revolutionary period. There's lots of real historical people in this. Paul Revere is one of the main characters actually in this book, about a young boy who is a silversmith, but he burns his hand and now he has to find something else to do. If you want some of the background, something like this. David McCullough, one of the premier historians of the age right now. 1776, this was another bestseller when it came out. Um, he's a fine writer, he's easily understood. Again, not too big, not too intimidating, don't be afraid. Let's go to China. Let's go to the Far East. One of the books that I remember reading as a child was by Pearl Buck. She was an American daughter of missionaries. She spent most of her life in China up until 1934. And the books that she wrote were set in China. This is The Good Earth. It was one of them. It was set in China, a small village in China, and it was pre-communist revolution. Another of the books that she wrote was a book called Imperial Woman, about the last ruling empress of China, an incredibly ambitious woman, a contemporary or so of Queen Victoria. This is a biography of her that had come out a few years ago. The Last Empress, the She-Dragon of China, about Empress Cixi, and it was all about basically her life in the early 1900s, the fall of the Manchu dynasty, which led to the ability of Mao to and the communist takeover. Really fascinating stuff. And we're finally, another one of my favorite time periods, World War II. This is a book I'm actually reading right now. It is called The Right Sort of Man. It is about two women just after the war has ended in England, and they are friends and are starting a business, a marriage bureau business. One of their clients is killed, and so they are determined to find out who actually did it. Chock full of information about what life was like, daily life, the coupons, the lines, the waiting, the bombed out buildings that they had to cope with. I'm not finished with it yet, but I'm assuming that the good will end happily and the bad will end unhappily, because that is what good fiction means. And 5 points to you if you know what that's from. World War II has absolutely no lack of materials if you're looking for some basic information. This one, The Story of World War II by Donald Miller, a little bit bigger than some of the other history books, but there was so much going on, so many countries, so many people, so many lives that were changed and still having repercussions to today. So that's all I have right now. Thank you for watching, and please watch again for the next Sip and Read. Thank you.